As video game connoisseurs, we're used to seeing some of our favourite titles attracting negative attention. Over the years, a number of games such as Mortal Kombat and Doom have been accused of inspiring players to commit real-world violent acts, and although the link between video games and violence is dubious at best, it's hard to deny that these games are provocative. We've also seen titles draw the ire of various groups claiming that they're an affront to common decency, with games like South Park: The Stick of Truth upsetting censors the world over with their edgy content.
That green goo makes ginger hallway monitors even lamer!
Not all games deserve the controversy they court, however, and some instances of games hitting the media are just downright stupid. Whether it's concerned parents and politicians getting their knickers in a twist without even getting the full story, or media outlets getting irritated over nothing, there are some controversies that just aren't worth people's time and outrage. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 scandals attracted by perfectly reasonable games. Number 10. Night Trap. By today's standards, it's fair to say Night Trap is rather tame, but even when it was released in 1992, it was hardly the most shocking piece of media in existence, especially when you compare it with the movies from which it drew inspiration. That didn't prevent the game from coming under fire, however, and in 1993, a United States Senate committee held a hearing on the subject of video game violence. Along with Mortal Kombat, Night Trap was placed under scrutiny, with some senators, despite never having played the game, alleging it glorified violence and sexual aggression against women. The scene that particularly caused outrage was one in which a female character is captured by augurs in a bathroom. Naturally, the allegations were disputed by the developers, who asserted that the point of the game was to protect the women, not harm them. They even clarified that the bathroom scene was intentionally shot in such a way that when the assailants attacked, they did nothing more than grab the woman by the arms, and that the blood-draining device was purposefully designed to look unrealistic. Regardless, the committee was having none of it, and the whole debacle led to the creation of the ESRB. Don't you just love it when politicians listen to sense and reason?
No, not this time. It's totally made up. Pure fiction.
Number 9. Battlefield 3. It's starting to feel like the alleged animal rights champions PETA, no not that one, will do just about anything they can to stay relevant, and that includes creating a scene over whatever video game happens to be flavour of the month. Over the years, they've targeted Mario, Cooking Mama, and Super Meat Boy, each for reasons that vary from questionable to downright bizarre. In 2011, they decided to target Battlefield 3 on account of the fact that it allows players to kill rats. Don't get us wrong, we're obviously not in favour of causing harm to the little furry critters, but PETA's logic, which claims that causing harm to digital creatures translates to real-world instances of animal cruelty, is a bit of a stretch to say the least. Video games causing real violence. Where have I heard that before? In a statement issued by the German branch of the charity, they asserted that killing virtual animals can have a brutalizing effect on the young male target audience, and that there have been repeated cases of animal cruelty in Germany where young people kill animals. Inspiration behind these acts often comes from movies and computer games. Gosh, is it February the 29th already? Because that was a leap. Number 8. Simcopter. If there was one thing we didn't expect to see whilst researching this list, it was a sentence that read, "A programmer introduced unauthorized himbo characters into Simcopter."
You what?
I don't know about you, but I'm of the opinion that all himbos should be 100% authorized at all times.
No. He's got a point.
For those unfamiliar with the term, Urban Dictionary defines himbos as attractive men who tend not to be very bright, but are extremely nice and respectful. Upset by the terrible working conditions he alleged to have been working under at Maxis, programmer Jacques Servin decided to include an Easter egg in 1996's Simcopter, which would see large numbers of scantily clad men invade the screen on certain dates, such as Friday the 13th or Servin's birthday. The feature was not discovered until after the game was released, at which point Maxis had a complete meltdown and fired Servin. Though they insisted it was due to his inclusion of something that wasn't supposed to be in the game, it caused quite a stir amongst groups like the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, who called for the game and other Maxis products to be boycotted over the matter. Just let the himbos have their moment. They're not doing any harm. Number 7. Tomb Raider. Fan-made mods can be the saviours of some games, and there have been several instances in the past where the hard work of a talented modder has been able to breathe life into a subpar title. Modders can, however, be cheeky little gits, and there have been many mods developed over the years that will force games to do something they shouldn't, whether it's turning the dragons in Skyrim into Thomas the Tank Engine, or allowing players to smack Lady Dimitrescu's bum with a fly swatter. It's worth remembering, however, that these are generally developed by fans and have nothing to do with the actual teams behind our favourite games, so concerns citizens should direct any anger appropriately. One such mod that outraged a game developer and had parents everywhere clutching their pearls was the Nude Raider patch for 1996's Tomb Raider. Using the mod, players were able to play the game with a completely naked Lara. The developers were appalled and issued a number of cease and desist letters both to those who created the mod and to sites depicting Lara in the buff. There was some speculation that a clothesless Lara could be found somewhere in the game's code, though this has been disproven. The developers have released cheat codes that they told players would remove Lara's clothes, except when it's entered, it simply blows her to pieces. That'll learn them. Number 6. Dance Dance Revolution Solo. Home dance mats were the perennial purveyors of many an injury throughout the early 2000s, whether you sprained your ankle trying to pull off a sick combo or left it out for a family member to unsuspectingly slip on and cause themselves a concussion. Arcade dance machines, on the other hand, you would think were fairly inoffensive. Yes, there's the embarrassment you'll feel when you show yourself up in front of your mates because of your 2 left feet, but that shouldn't be a reason to call for their removal. Well, call for their removal one concerned group of citizens did amid concerns that the activities depicted in some of the music videos could be corrupting the youths. In 2002, a bowling alley in San Diego, California bowed to pressure from the Youth Advocacy Coalition and replaced a Dance Dance Revolution machine after they alleged that several of the songs contained images that could promote substance abuse. The songs in question were Cut and Move's I'm Alive, which showed a sexy nurse and pills, and Sydney D's remix of Wham favourite Club Tropicana, which shows players an alcoholic beverage, which makes sense. After all, at Club Tropicana, the drinks are free. In the end, DDR Freak released a statement denying that Dance Dance Revolution promoted substance abuse, and Konami issued a warning to arcades surrounding the legality of the replacement machines. Number 5. Perfect Dark. Every so often, it's nice to switch things up a bit, especially if you've been working on a whole load of similar things for a while. Sadly, people are notorious for not embracing change, and no one knows this as well as Nintendo, who suffered the wrath of a number of upset parents following the release of Perfect Dark. Historically, Nintendo had always been associated with family-friendly entertainment, with the likes of Mario, The Legend of Zelda, and Pokemon making frequent outings that parents could be sure were suitable for the kiddos. That all changed with the launch of Perfect Dark, a first-person shooter that followed protagonist Joanna Dark as she attempted to thwart an extraterrestrial conspiracy. It was the first Nintendo game ever to be given a mature rating, which is unsurprising considering all of the violence, pixelated gore, and naughty language the game contains. A number of parents threatened to boycott the company, and CEO of Infogrames, a company famous for producing survival horror gem Alone in the Dark, was particularly affronted, speaking out against Perfect Dark and calling Nintendo's decision to release more adult-focused games a mistake. It didn't stop Perfect Dark, however, which went on to receive universal critical acclaim and sell millions of copies. Take that. Number 4. The Sims 2. One of the most fun things about The Sims is that you can get a bunch of tiny little people to do whatever you'd like them to do, whether that's becoming a successful artist, climbing the career ladder, or locking them in a small room and setting them on fire. The options really are limitless. Naturally, the pixelated nudity featured in The Sims attracted various modders to the scene, who proceeded to mod the game so that said pixelation could be removed, and the Barbie-like genitalia below revealed. Some even went as far as to make things even naughtier by adding more lifelike characteristics to the models. This attracted the attention of now disbarred Florida attorney, anti-video game activist, and all-round killjoy Jack Thompson, who blamed publisher EA for the mods, claiming that they weren't doing enough to crack down on the practice. A spokesperson for EA called the accusations nonsense, asserting that most reasonable people understood that developers and publishers have nothing to do with fan mods, and that they are no more responsible for these mods than newspapers are for those who doodle mustaches on their pictures. Wow. I can't believe I'm actually siding with EA. It's the first time for everything, I suppose. Number 3. Portal 2. There's an old saying that goes something like, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will hurt forever." And a particularly cutting insult can take deep root in one's psyche, causing emotional suffering for years to come. Though some scenes within our favourite video games may affect us emotionally, we wouldn't expect anyone to be particularly offended by the comedic stylings of Portal 2, but alas, we are once again very wrong. On one particularly slow news day in Charlotte, North Carolina, WBTV reporters took to the air to condemn Portal 2 for its segment in which Wheatley refers to Chell as fatty no parents. The parent who had raised the issue appeared in an interview to say how disgusted he was by the joke and how impactful it could be for adopted children, including his own 10-year-old daughter. All that said, the child in question didn't look particularly traumatized by the comment, despite all of her parents' protestations to the contrary. The station contacted Sony, who were presumably as confused as everyone else by the reaction to the quasi-offensive quip, and simply pointed the reporter in the direction of Valve, the developer of Portal 2, who, somewhat unsurprisingly, did not offer a comment on the situation.
Oh, piss off!
Number 2. Animal Crossing: New Horizons. Oh, come on, surely no one's offended by something as wholesome as Animal Crossing. What's the problem? Are the little island critters just too damned adorable? Is Tom Nook's unique brand of capitalism somehow upsetting to those who believe in the teachings of Karl Marx? It turns out that neither of those things was the problem for the censors in China, who instead took umbrage with the game's design suite after activists began using the software to create images in support of Hong Kong. Prior to the coronavirus outbreak, millions of Hong Kong residents had taken to the streets to protest the government. However, the lockdown restrictions put in place to fight the spread of the virus meant that the activists had to get a bit more creative. In order to keep momentum in the movement, Animal Crossing players used the game to continue spreading their message and speaking out against the oppressive regime. Naturally, China was none too pleased about this, and the game was removed from online store Taobao, though it's unclear as to whether this was enforced by the store or was brought about by the Chinese government. Either way, gamers in the country will have to get their wholesome fix somewhere else. Number 1. Pokemon series. In the 1980s, there was a massive and widespread moral panic during which concerned citizens believed that certain pieces of media were attempting to indoctrinate vulnerable minds to Satanism. The mass hysteria carried over into the 90s and early 2000s, and a number of targets came under fire, including Marilyn Manson, Doom, and Dungeons & Dragons. Rather bafflingly, however, several groups believed that Pokemon was also attempting to lure youngsters into the clutches of the Dark Lord.
Do it.
In a 2001 article by Christian publication Worthy News, the author accused Pokemon of opening up players to the demonic realm and claimed that the game could be manipulated by Lucifer and his agents to draw players down a dark path. Other sources also claimed that Pokemon is linked to the dark arts and teaches children how to enter the world of witchcraft and embrace all things demonic. It's unclear exactly why Pokemon earned itself such a reputation, but some speculate that it's to do with the supernatural powers possessed by the Pokemon themselves, and for the game's reliance on the evolution mechanic, which is in contradiction of teachings in the Bible. Fortunately, the Vatican has spoken on the matter and has given Pokemon its full blessing, which means that either the whole conspiracy was codswallop, or that the devil has finally gotten to the Pope. We'll leave you to decide which. And quite frankly, if liking Pokemon means you're in league with the devil, so be it.